Hi guys, good evening. Welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I will be doing my spoiler-filled film review for the new comedy that just came out in theaters tonight, and it'll hit theaters nationwide tomorrow. Super Troopers 2, the long-anticipated sequel to the cult classic comedy from way back in the day, is finally out, and it did not disappoint. Now, before I begin, of course, like I said earlier, this is going to be a spoiler-filled film review, so please be warned, I will be going over the really funny scenes, plot details, and a few other things, so be warned, spoilers from here on out regarding plot details and the highlight funny scenes, so you have been warned. That being said, this was great. This was a worthy follow-up to a very, very funny movie. Granted, it wasn't anything spectacular or mind-blowing, but it was just a really, really funny, really entertaining movie. And if you have those kind of expectations, I think you're going to like this movie. Bottom line, if you enjoyed the first one, if you enjoyed the cult classic Super Troopers, you're gonna like Super Troopers 2. This was a pretty funny, worthwhile sequel, a worthy follow-up to the cult classic. What I love the most is that none of these guys have really changed over the years. That, you know, they lost their jobs as the Spurbury cops, and I'm glad that they touched on that, because I was watching the original the other night and I'm like, oh yeah, they ended up taking the jobs of the Spurbury police, but in this movie it's like they're back to being patrolmen again. So I wonder how they're gonna explain that. And it was explained immediately within the first 5 minutes of the movie. First, in that bizarre dream sequence, which was hysterical, and then during the movie, it's something, it's something about they got Fred Savage killed during a ride-along or something. That's so funny. Oh man, this was a funny movie. The audience was really well responsive and receptive. We all laughed at the same time. We thought it was everybody seemed to enjoy themselves. It was just great seeing these guys back at it again, up to their usual shenanigans. They had some throwbacks to some of like the classic scenes from the first movie. Like one of my personal favorites is when they're looking for Rabbit and the woman, and the authorities start saying, "Enhance, enhance, enhance." Oh man, good stuff. And of course, Farva's liter of cola, stupid shit like that. And then, of course, how when they make a big drug buster, they uncover all of the drugs. Of course, instead of sending it to a lab to be tested, they all fucking test each one. God, stupid shit like that. It's just these guys haven't changed their antics or their unorthodox, unprofessional ways in all these years, and they're still as inept and as unorthodox as ever. And they somehow manage to solve a real crime and still save the day. That's the hilarious part, is that they actually end up saving the day. They somehow, become real cops and they're able to do their jobs, but they're just such dickweeds while doing it. It's hysterical. There's just so much goofiness and silliness to this movie. It just, it really resonates with you, just how much it really makes you appreciate and enjoy just how good that first movie was. And it's just like the humor from that film just carried right on over to this movie, and it's like a train. It just kept on chugging, it just kept going throughout the whole thing. I love the fact that they met their counterparts on the Canadian Mounted Police, who were just as goofy and as unorthodox as they were, but way up north from us. And of course, there's some bickering, and then that whole hilarious sequence where they dress up as the Mounted Police and they just fuck with people left and right. That was hysterical. And then like inhaling the helium balloons, or setting a bear when the Mounties set the bear loose in their station. God, that shit had me laughing. This whole movie had me laughing. Like I said, if you enjoyed the first movie, you're going to enjoy this movie as well. It's just like the continuation of the goofiness, the silliness, the crude humor from Super Troopers carries very well into Super Troopers 2. And it's so great that they got so many of the original cast to return. There's Broken Lizard, of course, but one of the funnier characters from the first movie, I always thought he was pretty damn funny from the first one, was Brian Cox as Captain O'Hagan. He was great. He was back as their captain once again, trying to keep them in line. Linda Carter as the governor of Vermont, which was hilarious. and a newcomer, Rob Lowe, as the mayor, secret smuggler of drugs and contraband, which was pretty funny. And that awful French Canadian accent he was trying to pull off. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, if he intentionally made it sound bad, or if it was for the movie, but it worked. It just worked overall. And then the goofy Canadian Mounties as well. They were super funny as well. And then they got Jim Gaffigan to return. This is the guy in the car who was victim of the Meow game from the first movie, and he remembered those two. And of course, they act like they don't remember him, but they steal his fucking car. Don't, yeah, here's the lesson for you. Don't give your key to strangers. I knew it was you the whole time, asshole. God. Oh, this was a funny movie. Funny movie. I think I'll see it again. I'll see it at least one more time on the big screen. Anybody, yeah, so for those of you who have seen it or are about to see it, and I hope I didn't ruin too much for you, and I warned you this was going to be filled with spoilers, stick around to the very end because there's a super funny post-credit scene. It just goes to show just how insane and stupid Farva is. Just, you know, the fact that he's a man of his word. He honors the stupid bet between him and Rabbit as to who was going to have sex with the attractive French-Canadian girl first, and the loser had to cut his pinky off on his foot with a fucking shovel and then put it in a food blender and drink it, and sure enough, that's the post-credit scene. He fucking does it, and you're like, Jesus, Farva, nobody actually bet you to do this. God. Oh, it's funny. It's a good laugh. This movie was great for a laugh. And also, during the credits, they show some of the bloopers or the outtakes from the movie. And one of the funniest ones is Will Sasso, the balder, heavy-set Canadian Mountie, keeps making everybody laugh with his god-awful accent and egg. So fucking funny. Oh, this is a funny movie. I'm still laughing from it. Oh, man. It was just great seeing the old gang back together up to their usual shenanigans on unorthodox methods and just fucking with the general public and not taking life too seriously and making us all laugh along the way. Just good stuff. So I would recommend it. If you're in the mood for a good laugh or a good comedy, I say see it. And this was a real treat. I'm glad that we finally got to see this long anticipated sequel. Now there was a line there where the governor reveals that it turns out the town that was going to become American soil, they're actually going to leave it as Canada for now until they find the source of the smuggling or the supplier, the smuggling supplier. Because even the woman Genevieve, who turned out to be a cop after all, even though she said that she didn't get the name of their smuggler, perhaps if this is a pretty big if they do a third movie, maybe they'll continue the storyline of trying to identify the smuggler who is smuggling contraband from Canada into the United States. Who knows? I think they just planted that as a possible little seed. If they do a third film, it'll depend on how well this movie does financially, because this film was entirely crowdfunded, which I think is pretty cool. And it also just shows you what a great fan base Broken Lizard has, or at least Super Troopers has. You know, I love it when the fans can get in on the action and actually help bring a beloved movie to the big screen. And I think this was a good example of that. And then there was something else too. I was really glad that the culprits were the mayor and his cronies from the brothel instead of the Canadian Mounties, because I thought, oh, guys, don't recycle the same plot line where it's the local cops who are, you know, the bad guys or the criminals like in the first film. But fortunately wasn't, and I was glad to see them put their differences aside and team up to take down the real bad guys. And then, of course, that respect is immediately lost as movie ends with them getting into a fucking fist fight with the Canadian Mounties in front of the cameras and reporters. Funny movie. Funny movie. Well, guys, Super Troopers 2 is now out in theaters. Tickets are available now. Go see it. I think you'll enjoy it. And stay through all the way to the very end of the credits. Treat it as a Marvel movie. As silly as that sounds, treat it as a Marvel movie. Sit through the entire thing until the very end. I think you'll enjoy yourselves. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the night. Thanks for stopping by. And don't forget to subscribe for more film reviews like this one. And and to check out the EdWord here on YouTube and on Facebook. I think you'll like what you see. Have a good one. Thanks for watching, and of course, until next time, may the force be with you.